Good morning, everyone. My name is Carla Ventura, and I am the coordinator of the Institute of Advanced Studies at the University of São Paulo at Ribeirão Preto campus. It is both an honor and privilege to welcome you to the closing conference of our capacity building program on climate networks and environmental justice in the Global South, Brazil and Angola. This program has been very successful, and we are planning for the second program also including Mozambique. So this program has been organized by the Research Group on Experimental Criminology and Public Safety, led by Professor Eduardo Saad Diniz and Professor Ruth Estevam. My deep gratitude to both of you for your leadership and commitment. We are also grateful for the collaboration of the Jean Piaget University of Angola, the Umbala do Saber Scientific Dissemination Platform, and the Amazonia Research Center, ARC. Thank you to each of these institutions. Working together has been a truly enriching learning experience. So today, we are especially delighted to welcome Professor Thomas Polk. Professor Polk is Professor of Philosophy and International Affairs and the founding director of the Global Justice Program at Yale University. He is a member of the Norwegian Academy of Science, among many other prestigious international associations. He is also the co-founder of Academics Stand Against Poverty, a global network that seeks to amplify the impact of scholars, educators, and students in the fight against global poverty. It has been a great honor to collaborate with Professor Polk on various projects, and it's truly a privilege to have him with us today. Thank you so much, Professor Polk, for accepting our invitation and for sharing your insights with us, especially on the topic of the Ecological Impact Fund, which is a fund highly oriented to support resilience in the Global South. With this fund, Professor Polk was awarded the 2024 Office of Health Economics Innovation Policy Prize. So before Professor Polk's conference, I would like to ask our colleagues from Angola to welcome Professor Polk and our audience. First, I would give the floor to Professor Patrício Jeremias, please.
Ok, professora Carla, obrigada. Eu não vou poder falar no inglês perfeito porque domino o português, que é a melhor forma que eu tenho de comunicar, mas desde já agradecer toda esta introdução, sobretudo agradecer a presença do professor Thomas Polk aqui no encerramento do nosso ciclo, né? A Umbala do Saber, do qual eu represento, com o Mr. Garrido, é uma instituição que foi feita exatamente com esse propósito, que é o propósito de não ser apenas uma produtora de conhecimento, mas estamos aqui também como um agente de transformação, né? E esse agente de transformação é exatamente pelo canal mais próximo que se tem de chegar à mentalidade das pessoas por intermédio da educação. Nós queremos ser essa ponte da ciência à comunidade, uma espécie de espectro dentro da pesquisa de impacto, onde tudo mais do que nunca é tentar atingir o máximo de pessoas possíveis, de formas a que possamos ser nós, não só nós no caso, a Umbala do Saber, mas toda a sociedade, aquela que vai contribuir para a construção de um caminho que alia a educação, consciência crítica, e mais do que isso, um compromisso com o planeta, né? Nós precisamos estar comprometidos com o planeta, porque vimos que o uso indevido e intensivo de recursos tem causado imensos problemas para o nosso planeta. E então, desta maneira, a Umbala do Saber fez e participou coativamente na formação, nesse ciclo, como forma de poder contribuir de forma positiva para que o planeta esteja mais preservado. Então, nós, nesta altura, só temos a agradecer imenso ao Polo de Ribeirão Preto da Universidade de São Paulo pelo contributo que deram, pela ajuda, prestimosa ajuda que deram para que esse ciclo fosse produtivo, né? Nosso muito obrigado e, sobretudo, o nosso agradecimento especial à professora Carla, à professora Ruth, à Thaís, ao professor Saad e todos os preletores, como temos aqui hoje o professor Paulo também, sem esquecer, de qualquer das maneiras, que não fosse possível, tem o nosso a estimosa colaboração dos nossos amigos do Piaget e o meu parceiro aqui de jornada, que é o professor Garrido, né? Ele é o meu companheiro, o meu cicerone de jornada, está aqui como uma mulher, está como adjunto do Sobre e tem feito esforços e dedicação que não tem reconhecimento, não tem nível de reconhecimento, é simplesmente excepcional. Por isso, hoje, nesse último dia das jornadas, irmãos, muito obrigado a todos. A professora Cora, que está aqui, que também nunca deixou de estar conosco, nesses últimos tempos tem estado aqui conosco, também muito obrigado, professora Cora. A Umbala do Saber agradece a todos por este evento, por estarem aqui. Obrigado, nós, e passa a palavra ao Garrido, talvez também queira falar alguma coisa em relação a isso. Garrido, siga.
Thank you, Professor Patricia. Professor Torma, we would like to welcome you to our climate initiative. My name is Mosquito Garrido. I'm from Angola, professor. Also, I'm an army officer that is very that we care a lot about the environment, the world, the next generations, and to be in this global south is an honor for me and my colleagues to have the chance to get information from you and learn as much as we can about your job, your scientific studies, and take as much we can. We are from Umbala do Saber, like Professor Patricio said, that is a non-profit organizations that has the idea to engage people who like to share scientific information and create a research, a small research center in Angola. And we have also Professor Acora, that is our ally. She works for one of the biggest university in Angola. And we'll give the word to Professor Acora just to give also a welcome to Professor Thomas before we start with Professor Saad. Cora, please, and thank you.
Thank you for the floor, Mosquito Garrido. Welcome, Professor. It's my first time that I will be exposed to your knowledge, to your thoughts. I have a very high expectation about that, and I welcome you one more time. And of course, after Mosquito and all the previous intervenants, I don't have much to say. Please be with us and share with us your thoughts, because we have a very high expectation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I think we can begin, Professor Pope. The floor is yours, and thank you again for being with us today.
Good. Thank you all for your very warm introduction and warm welcome. I have actually never been to Angola, but I have been to some countries in that region, very recently in South Africa, and I will soon be in Zambia. One of the things we have done at Academics Stand Against Poverty is to commence a Nelson Mandela Essay Prize, where young scholars from all over Africa can present their work on solving Africa's problems. So I'm more than happy to send you that information, and that prize will be an annual event in the future. And young people from Mozambique and from everywhere in Africa can participate in that prize. So, but today I want to talk to you about a project that I have worked on in the last year. I started work on it late last year. We won that prize, this essay prize that Carla was nice to mention. And since then, I have presented it in several universities and at the Supreme Court in Brazil, and also in South Africa in the context of the G20. As you know, Brazil is the head of the COP this year, and South Africa is the president of the G20. So we have a very special opportunity to make real progress in this important year under very good presidencies. So you can see the talk is dedicated to Sebastião Salgado, if you can move it forward, who is a person who I have used, next slide, on 4 of my books. I've used his photographs, and I admired him greatly, and he unfortunately recently died, but he was a person who could not only know about the great suffering that still goes on in many poor areas and countries, but also could feel it and could express it and could make other people feel it. And in that regard, I have felt that he was a really close friend and ally. And I've always sort of communicated with him and tried to get his pictures more widely known and appreciated. Now, next slide. Today, I don't need to tell you about climate change and the great problem that we have: accelerating warming, sea level rise, unbearable heat in many parts of the world. Tropical diseases are spreading, food and water are running short, and we have many more extreme weather events that are in English called natural disasters, even though they are not so natural. They are really driven in part by global warming. And we have the loss of biodiversity, many plants and animals going extinct. Next slide. Another problem that is less well known is the problem of pollution and the health problems that arise from it. So in 2018, 8.7 million people died from air pollution. They died, of course, not immediately from air pollution. They died from heart disease, from strokes, from respiratory diseases, and from cancer. But the number of deaths from these causes was 8.7 million larger than it would have been without that air pollution. PM 2.5 being a main source of it, but also other pollutants. Now, 8.7 million people, that is a very, very large number. That is 1/7 of all the deaths in that year. So already today, we have a massive death toll from pollution. So environmental problems are great. Next slide. And the way to solve them is really through green technologies. We do not want to go back to the Middle Ages. We do not want to stop using washing machines and cars and air conditioning, but we do want to use these things without the pollution that they create. Next slide. So we want green technologies. And of course, we already have massive production of green technologies. I'm currently in China. China is the source of half of all the green technology patents. About 30,000 of those patents are granted each year. And patents are the way in which new innovations are incentivized. We encourage companies and individuals to invent things by promising them a 20-year monopoly. That is the universal method globalized by the TRIPS agreement in 1995, which was under pressure from the United States and from the rich countries. They said everybody in the world must have 20-year product patents and must make it possible to collect money, for innovating firms to collect money on their innovations from every country, anywhere. And so very large amounts of money flow to the innovators in pharmaceuticals, in green technologies, in everything, from those people who are buying and using these new technologies. Now, patents have a good side. That is, they really encourage innovation. But patents also have a very bad side. They raise the price of those innovations. In the case of pharmaceuticals, often pharmaceuticals sell for more than 1,000 times the price, the cost of production. In the case of green technologies, the markups are much smaller, but still significant. And so green technologies, give me the next slide, green technologies are really not used as much as they could or should be used, especially in the global south, because patents increase their price. And of course, there are two reasons for that. One is that people in the global south do not have very much money. They cannot really afford to pay extra for a patented technology. So sometimes, especially companies, prefer to use cheaper, older, dirtier technologies in preference to newer ones. And the second reason is, skip 2 slides. Yeah, the second reason is that in the global south, if you use patented technologies, or if you encourage the use of patented technologies, you are thereby creating a flow of money from the global south to the global north. So if people in the south, in Angola, for example, if they massively start using green technologies, then they have to pay money to the innovators in the global north, in Germany, in the US, in China, and so on, for the privilege to use these green innovations. It's not surprising that most of the patents are owned by Northerners, because Northerners have the financial capital and also the human capital to reach innovations first. So in the race to achieve innovation, the North has a huge head start, a huge privilege. It's very, very difficult for a Southern company or a Southern innovator to reach a certain innovation before anybody in the North. And so typically patents are held by Northerners, and the South is really reluctant to pay money to the global North for the privilege of helping to solve a problem that really the global North has created, the problem of environmental degradation, of environmental harm. Next one. Here's just one example. There is a technology that makes coal-fired power plants much cleaner. That technology is called ultra supercritical. And the patent for that technology is owned by Mitsui Babcock, a Japanese company. And they said, if you want to use that technology, you have to pay us $1.5 million for every 600 megawatt boiler that you equip with our technology. So electricity companies in China, they paid the money, but electricity companies in India, they said, no way, we are not going to pay that money. We are going to use an older subcritical or supercritical technology, and we will create much more pollution for producing the same amount of electricity. So this is a terrible tragedy. We have a clean technology, but we are not using it because the patent makes the technology so expensive that it is cheaper to use the wasteful, old, dirty technology. So the question is then, is there a way in which we can give people access to green technology without making that green technology artificially expensive? And to solve that problem, next slide, to solve that problem, I'm proposing an ecological impact fund, or Fundo de Impacto Ecológico, and that fund would find a different way of rewarding innovators. We want to reward innovators. They should be rewarded. They should get some benefit for inventing something, but not a benefit that increases the price. So the Ecological Impact Fund is offering innovators an exchange in the Global South. It is saying that if you are willing to give up your patent privileges in the Global South, in the lower income countries, then we will pay you a reward that is based on the ecological harm that is prevented with your innovation. So that's the simple trade. And ecological harm here is defined in terms of greenhouse gas emissions avoided, greenhouse gas emissions measured in CO2 equivalent, and also quality adjusted life years. That means health burdens avoided. So you get paid for health burdens avoided, for lower health burden, and for lower greenhouse gas emissions if you give up your patent privileges. In the north, you can keep your patent privileges, but in the south, you have to give them up. Next slide. So the deal that I just described, again, is here stated. The EIF rewards each registered technology for 5 years. So for the first 5 years that a green technology is on the market, it gets paid for its impact in the Global South. And in exchange, the innovator, the patent holder, gives up their patent privileges in the Global South. So the whole exchange works only in the Global South. Next one. So this system, this ecological impact fund, would especially attract green innovations that are developed maybe for the global north, and they do not sell very well in the Global South. But if they register with the Ecological Impact Fund, they can be much more widely used for 2 reasons. They're cheaper, and also because the innovator gets, in addition to the sales price, gets the impact reward as well. So green innovations would spread much more widely, would be used much more widely in the Global South. But there's a second benefit, and that is that some green innovations would be developed for the Ecological Impact Fund that would never have been developed otherwise. So innovators, green innovators, they tend to innovate for the global north because that's where the money is. They do not think very much about what poor people need, what people in the global south need in tropical areas, for example, because those people are poorer and you cannot earn a lot of money by selling green technologies to people in the global south. But if there is an ecological impact fund that pays for the reduction of ecological harm, then maybe you can make money by developing innovations specifically for the needs of the global south. Note here one thing: the Ecological Impact Fund is paying for ecological harm reduced and for health gains, for better health of people, regardless of how rich or poor these people are. So if a green innovation improves the health of even very poor people, it still gets paid, the innovator gets paid the same amount as the innovator would get paid for improving the health of rich people. So the benefits of the Ecological Impact Fund are exactly the same, regardless of who gets these benefits. That is very different from the patent system, where, of course, it is rich people who get access to the innovation because they can pay the high prices. Next one. The Ecological Impact Fund would every year distribute a large amount of money, maybe $3 billion or $4 billion. And that money would be divided among all the registered green technologies in proportion to the harm that each of them has averted. So if you register your green technology with the Ecological Impact Fund, and if your innovation is responsible in a particular year for 5% of the ecological harm reduced, then in that year, you get 5% of the money. That repeats 5 times for 5 years, and at the end of the 5 years, the innovator has received his reward and the innovation becomes generic. That means the innovation can be produced and reproduced by anyone, exactly like is now the case at the end of the patent period. Next slide. What makes the EIF politically very realistic is the fact that it is completely voluntary. We are not forcing any green innovator to do anything. We are simply offering them a trade. If you want, you can give up your patent privileges and you can get another reward instead, namely impact rewards. The 3 billion or 4 billion that I want to use for this Ecological Impact Fund every year, that money is already there because the rich countries have promised in Azerbaijan at the COP29 that they would make available $300 billion every year as global climate finance for poorer countries to adapt and mitigate climate change. Next one. They promised first 100 billion, that was in 2009. They reached that promise in 2022, but much of that money is really smoke and mirrors. It is a lot of cheating. So 93% of that money overlaps with development assistance. So the rich countries have really retargeted their development assistance so that they can count many of the dollars that they give twice as development assistance and again as global climate finance. They gave in 2022 $116 billion for global climate finance, and they gave $211 billion for development assistance, but really in total, that is only $219 billion because of all the double counting. Moreover, 3/4 of that money that they give for climate finance is loans. And as you know, African countries are already very heavily indebted. So again, this is not real money. This is money that has to be repaid. So what I'm saying is at least give $4 billion honestly for a very, very effective mechanism for reducing the harm from climate change and pollution in the global south. Make $4 billion honest money and make it very, very effective. Next one. Where should this money come from? Of course, as I said, it should come from the global north. The global north has produced this problem, has caused the problem of global warming and the problem of pollution. And the north really owes the global south a very, very large debt for all the harm it has caused, and also, of course, a very large historical debt for slavery, for genocide, for colonialism, for the appropriation of all the many resources that the global north has taken. So states should fund this, and additional money can come from offset markets and from private donations across the global north. And I hope that over time, the Ecological Impact Fund will build an endowment. An endowment is basically a large fortune, a large account, which can cushion the ups and downs of the world economy and can also assure innovators that the Ecological Impact Fund always has enough money to pay future payouts. And here, the capital endowment, of course, would also produce income every year, interest and dividends that could supplement the money that we get from northern governments. Next one. I want to conclude by quickly running through 8 features of the EIF that show that the EIF is economically extremely efficient. It gives you very, very high impact for every dollar invested. Next one. The first reason is that we focus on the lower income countries. In the higher income countries, many of the measures to reduce pollution have already been taken. So taking additional measures is very expensive. In the global south, relatively little has been done so far, and it would be much cheaper to make progress to reduce pollution in the global south. Next slide. You can see here where the pollution comes from. Most of it comes from the high-income countries, of course. A lot of it comes from China, but the lower middle-income countries and the low-income countries, even though they are not big polluters now, they are potentially enormously big polluters. Africa's population in the year 2100 will be 4 billion. That is 12 times the population of the United States today. If you Africans live like US people live now in the year 2100, you would produce 12 times as much pollution as the huge pollution that the US is now producing. Our planet would be toast. It would be destroyed if that happened. So we absolutely have to make sure that you in Africa and people throughout the global south have the real opportunity to use green technologies. Of course, you must have washing machines and personal transportation devices and all that. Nobody should deprive you of that, but they should be green products, products with very little ecological footprint, and not the kind of products that US people and Europeans and Japanese and so on are using now. So we are focusing on the global south. Jump 2 now to the second. The second thing is that the Ecological Impact Fund pays only for success. We do not pay for good ideas. We pay for actual reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. So we are not paying in upfront. We are not giving money to innovators and hoping that they will come up with a good innovation. We are paying them only for success. That's similar to the patent system, but of course, we pay differently. We pay on the basis of ecological impact and not as a monopoly markup, a monopoly rent. Next one. And here payment is based on complete implementation. You get paid not for a good prototype, not for a fantastic machine that works in a laboratory, but only if your green innovation is widely taken up and really produces ecological benefit. Only then do you get paid in proportion to exactly that ecological benefit. Next one. Here, the EIF creates an open innovation space. That is to say, many different green technologies can all compete with each other. So you could have a technology that involves windmills or other means of energy production, or a different way of producing cement, or a different way of producing steel, or a different food for animals that reduces methane production, which cows produce. Anything that produces ecological benefit, any new innovation, any new technology can be registered with the Ecological Impact Fund and can be rewarded. So we have a very large competition in which many different innovations can participate. And of course, the innovations that are most cost efficient, that give us the most ecological impact per dollar invested, those innovations will be the most profitable on the Ecological Impact Fund. Next one. Now, this Ecological Impact Fund creates a dynamic competition. So here you get rewarded for impact, and how much you get rewarded for impact depends on the competition. If the reward rate drops at some point, then maybe fewer innovations will be registered, and that will bring the reward rate back up, because fewer innovations means that the money is divided among fewer green technologies. Conversely, if the reward rate rises too high, many people will register their innovations and the reward rate will be driven down again. So the reward rate will always be at an efficient level. It will be sufficient to inspire people to register their innovations, but not so high that innovators get a windfall profit, that innovators get more reward than is necessary to inspire their innovation. Next one. The EIF will attract innovations or investments to high impact green innovations that have so far been neglected because the potential users and buyers are poor, or because buyers can only expect a very small fraction of the ecological benefit. That's another big problem, that typically when a company buys a green technology, it gets a very small benefit. Its owners, its employees, its workers get a small benefit, but most of the benefit of using green technologies go to people all over the planet and future generations. And especially companies are not willing to pay for that. But the Ecological Impact Fund will pay for that. The Ecological Impact Fund will reward the full benefits of the use of a green technology. And that means that innovations that are now not profitable to develop will be developed, and innovations that it is now not profitable to use will be profitable to use, because all the benefits of the innovation will be fully rewarded. Next one. There are incentives for wide adoption because the innovation would simply be used much more widely because the innovator gets rewarded for each new sale. You get not only the sales price, but you also get the ecological benefit that comes from the use of the innovation by another customer. So each green innovation would achieve much, much more than they do now, where only few people use them because the rewards are small and the price is higher. Next one. And maybe the most important thing about the EIF is that it will accelerate progress. Innovators will innovate more, they will invest more in innovation, more time, more energy, more money, because there is this additional $3 billion a year of reward money, especially for innovations that are needed in the global south. And that will accelerate progress, and in the long run will be the largest benefit of the Ecological Impact Fund. Finally, I can also say, next slide, that of course all the inefficiencies of patents will be avoided. Patents produce a lot of waste. Every economist can tell you that. It is expensive to patent a technology all over the world. It is expensive to litigate all the patent cases, all the lawsuits and so on. And patents also, because of the large markup, create a lot of corruption through kickbacks. You try to sell things to people who don't benefit from them. You try to bribe middlemen to sell your innovation to people who really don't need it and cannot benefit from it, and so on. And all that would fall by the wayside. And moreover, you would also get from the Ecological Impact Fund the benefit of capacity building. So green technologies would be much more often used in the global south, and that would create jobs for people to install, to operate, to maintain, to repair these green innovations in the global south. And also there would be more innovators in the global south, because in regard to the innovations that are needed in the global south, people from the global south are much more able to compete in developing these innovations. In regard to innovations that are needed in the global north, often southern innovators, as I said before, they have a great disadvantage in education, in capital, in financial capital, and so they cannot really compete in designing the most state-of-the-art windmill or the most state-of-the-art power plant. But Southerners can compete in developing the most state-of-the-art moped, for example, or a kitchen stove, or something that is needed in the global south. And so the Ecological Impact Fund would also give rise to much more exciting, innovative activity in the global south. This is the last slide. Next one. We are living in a period of great selfishness. Trump, Milei in Argentina, and so on. We have people, leaders, who are telling us that we should all be selfish, we should all be putting our own country first, make the United States great again, whatever. I think we should not. I think we should collaborate on a moral basis in a multilateral way, and we should finally try to get rid of the most shameful blight on our history, which is the blight of poverty. This poverty has emerged, this great poverty and great inequality has emerged in the colonial period over the last 200, 300 years. And it is absolutely unacceptable from a moral point of view that so many billions of people live on less than 1/10 the global average income. We need to overcome that. We need to create a fair world economy where the global south can catch up and can participate in innovation and in using innovations, in creating innovations, and in saving our planet from the horrible threats that it is facing, the ecological threats in particular. And the Ecological Impact Fund would be a small but very symbolic step in that direction, in the direction of including the global south and in the direction of really putting an end to the ecological destruction of our planet. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Professor Polk, for such an inspiring conference. I would like to open for our colleagues from Angola, if they have any comments, please.
Thank you, Professor Carla. I'd like to, first of all, say it was a brilliant speech, Professor Thomas, and I want to congratulate you for your work. I really appreciate. But I have a few questions for you, if you don't mind.
No.
Question. The first question, in your opinion, how can the global south could develop the country once we are fighting to preserve the planet, and the green technology doesn't come often for our sites. And as you mentioned, the patterns are really expensive. This is what could be a good strategy in your opinion? That's the first question. The second is like our countries like Brazil, Angola, Congo, and I'm going to be specific in Africa, Congo and Brazil, that we are the source of most of the strategic minerals for the world. And we have like lack of technology, lack of labs to increase the research projects for explorer, for example, critical minerals for local people, or even from university. My question is, how those countries could benefit with your program once you this program that Ecological International Funds that you're running right now, if you don't have exactly the chance to have those labs, this won't be a fairly, because a student, I will give you an example, like a student from Congo, Brazil, Angola, doesn't have the same opportunity to start, to have all the tools to start a project. Neither they have sometimes like sponsorship from the college, the university, the research centers. Are we gonna give you like even the prototype or a product to run for this program? Is a way to change the philosophy and help those countries once those countries are really important when it comes for like strategic minerals and what stuff for the world. Thank you, and I hope you understand my questions.
Yeah, the first one is clearer than the second, but I will try to answer both of them. So with the first one, the how do we avoid the markup, the patent markup that is slowing and impeding the spread of green technologies in the global south, especially. And here again, the idea is that we do two things. One is we take away, for many green technologies, the markup. We are simply offering the patent holder a deal. We say, if you give up your patent privileges in the global south. Everywhere in the global south, you give up your patent privileges. You do not patent your product in the south. If you do that, we give you another cookie and a sort of replacement. And the replacement is we will pay you according to the impact of your innovation. So you can think of it this way. There is a headwind against the spread of green technologies in the global south. The headwind is high prices. That headwind, we take that away. And then we create a tailwind, a wind from behind. We say that we will pay you money for the ecological impact of your innovation in the global south. So every time you sell your product anywhere in the global south, we will estimate the ecological benefit from that sale, from the use of that product, and we will pay money to the innovator, to the inventor, for that ecological benefit. So that means that the innovator now gets two payments. He gets the price, which is a little lower now, because it's no longer the patent markup. And in addition, the ecological impact reward. And if you have a good innovation, you can earn more money from the ecological impact reward than from the sales price. So you invent a cooking stove that does not create smoke. So many people who do cooking in the global south with wood, for example, they get sick from the smoke. But your innovation prevents that. So your innovation means that many people in the global south who are using your stove are not getting sick. And you get paid for that. So you get paid when you sell the stove, you get the sales price, and then you get paid again for the ecological benefit from using the stove. And that means that you can afford to sell the stove more cheaply, right? You can say, we sell the stove even below cost, because we get, in addition to the sales price, we get the money from the ecological impact, from the fact that many women and men, if they cook, are much healthier now. So that's how it works economically, right? The patent system is giving the wrong sort of reward. Now, the second thing that you asked about is how we can, I think you asked about the resources, the natural resources in Congo and Brazil, which are the resources needed for producing green technologies, right? So minerals like cobalt, for example. And this is a separate problem that the Ecological Impact Fund doesn't really solve, but I am working on that also. It is a huge injustice that the countries of the global south do not get fair reward for their minerals. And the Congo is the best example, the very best example. The Congo has been exploited for many decades under Mobutu Sese Seko. And basically, Western companies paid Mobutu something, a few million or a few billion, and they took trillions of resources out of the Congo, right? And so this is a horrific injustice. And Mobutu Sese Seko, I should add, he came to power with the help of the West. It was a conspiracy of the Belgians and the Americans to kill his predecessor and put Mobutu Sese Seko in charge, right? So this is a real big problem, especially for Africa. And what I'm proposing there it's a separate project, but I'm proposing a southern auction house. So an institution where all the mineral resources of Africa are sold through a central clearinghouse in auction, transparent. All the resources are registered there, and then companies from all over the world can bid for the contract, including African companies, of course. So now what happens is a Western company goes to a Nigerian statesman, a president or a leader, and says, we give you some money under.
Do we lose the professor, or is it only me?
Oh, I think we lost.
Yeah, we all lost him.
Oh. That's very interesting. Professor Carla, you want to take the floor?
I think we can wait because he may be coming
Just
back.
frozen.
Yes, I think we can wait a little bit for him. Professor Eduardo? Yes. So,
Ele deve estar reiniciando a conexão.
yes.
Professor Eduardo, o que eu estava aí, professora Carla, a minha ideia, apesar do professor Torma ter falado também da ideia de criar um standard de leilão para os minerais africanos, mas a minha ideia é, uma vez que o Ecological Impact Fund apenas paga quem já tem um produto forte, a pergunta que eu fazia ao professor é como é que países do sul global, como Brasil, Angola, Congo e outros, podem concorrer para melhorarem, para desenvolverem soluções, uma vez que nós não temos as mesmas oportunidades que os investidores, que os pesquisadores do norte global têm. Eles têm muito dinheiro para meter no investimento. E seria interessante que para países como os nossos, do sul global, pudessem ter pelo menos uma verba para investigação e não à espera de um produto acabado. Porque aqui estamos perante, na minha opinião, uma concorrência desleal. Aquilo que nós teríamos como oportunidade de pesquisa e de protótipos finais nunca, ou melhor, não será tão fácil, tão sábio, principalmente quando ele for submetido ao mercado final. Eu acho que, e essa é a minha opinião, que o Ecological Impact Fund podia criar uma política de incentivar pesquisadores e até programas como IEA, de patrocinar fortemente para que pesquisadores possam dedicar-se à pesquisa para concorrer mais lá para frente para isso, porque nós inclusive temos aqui um dizer que eu acho que é bem internacional, que é problemas locais, soluções locais. Então era mais ou menos isso que eu trazia para a discussão na segunda pergunta. Apesar que foi interessante deixar o professor apresentar a ideia dessa plataforma de venda de minerais estratégicos de formas justas, abertas e internacionais. Era mais ou menos essa discussão.
O que o professor Mosquito traz é um típico caso da necessidade de capacity building, né? De capacitação local, né? Capacitação não é só oferecer treinamento, né? Criar infraestrutura local que permita a formação de um ambiente voltado para a inovação, né? E aí um trabalho que nós desenvolvemos, né, sob a liderança da professora Carla e da professora Ruth, né, que foi junto às lideranças comunitárias do Cinturão Verde de Manaus, a gente pôde identificar dois outros problemas adicionais, que era o que eu ia trazer aqui para o debate com o professor Thomas, né? O primeiro deles é que a própria ideia de inovação, né? Eu queria brincar um pouco com a minha falta de imaginação filosófica, né, que eu não conseguiria pensar, ainda não consigo ver, né, um mundo sem a poluição, um mundo com ao menos menos, né, com pelo menos um efeito mitigado da poluição, né, que é a orientação objetiva do fundo dele, né? Por um lado. Por outro, as comunidades locais, elas vão dizer o seguinte, mas espera aí, eu não preciso de green innovation, não preciso de inovação, eu só quero ficar aqui na minha casa, eu só quero que você não polua meu rio, né? Eu só quero que você não me encha de fumaça no ar que eu respiro, né? Por um lado. Por outro, né, e isso a gente viu nas visitas locais, né? O que é uma green innovation voltada para impactos de saúde, né? Trazer novas formas de energia renovável de pequena escala para que isso seja difundido em comunidades locais. Isso, obviamente, tem impactos muito positivos para a saúde das pessoas, né? Ou orientado por energia solar, né? Esses filtros de água, né? E aí a gente viu que algumas lideranças comunitárias queriam vender para o outro quando eles assim o têm, né? Então esse é um diálogo que a gente... então, assim, o que eu ia perguntar era se o fundo ecológico tinha capacidade de gerar renda, né, para as pessoas.
Professor Eduardo, o professor Paul está aqui de volta. Então, acho que a palavra está com você.
Oh, great. Mosquito,
aproveita.
To add some comments?
Não. Yes, Eduardo, podias aproveitar para... sorry, Eduardo, you can use, once you understand my last question, but I can finish. I was about to give you the word, so you could also talk about my second thought. Right? But before I give you the word, I just want to say, Professor, thank you for your answer. Professor Eduardo is going to complement my thoughts, because when we lose you, when we lost you, we had a chance to talk a little bit. Even was in Portuguese, and I believe you're gonna help me out. But once again, thank you very much.
But Professor Poggi was about to finish his comments. Yeah, we lost you when we start talking about the Nigerian leadership.
Yeah. I have proposed this auction house where all the sales of African natural resources would be centralized, and there would be a public invitation to bid. So if any African country wants to sell any natural resources, it would register them with that auction house, and then any company that wants to buy these resources could bid for it. So basically all different resource purchasing companies would be competing in an open auction for the resource. And that means that you couldn't simply give the resource to your favorite buyer and at a very low price, but rather every company in the world would have an opportunity to compete for it. So Chinese companies, American companies, Brazilian companies, every company that needs that resource can bid, and that way you make sure that the seller gets the best possible price. And of course, if the seller isn't happy with the price, they can withdraw. They can say, no, we're not selling. But what the seller cannot do is make a sweetheart deal with a preferred buyer. And that is what often happens now, that the leader of a country or some corrupt politician is selling the resource at a much cheaper price to a favorite buyer. And that favorite buyer then gives some money under the table to that official. That's how people get so very rich. Many of the politicians in so many countries get very rich because they are bribed by foreign resource companies.
Mosquito, do you want to add any comment?
Thank you, Professor Eduardo. I think I give you the word because I do believe that you're going to complement where we talk, right? But once again, Professor Thomas, it's a pleasure and an honor to talk to you, and thank you for answering my questions.
Yeah, I hope we will be able to talk in person in some future time.
Well, Professor Poggi, I swear that I have 5 or 6 questions for you, but I don't want to abuse your time, and I don't want to abuse the...
Yeah, don't worry about my time. Just ask the most important one, and then we go from there.
No, but I will just choose one of them. As you know, I'm highly concerned on financial integrity, right? And I don't know, it's been 10 or 15 years that you've been working in financial integrity as well, since you first developed your health impact fund. And here, I think that it replicates again the problems of diverted or deceptive behavior, right? Mm-hmm. We've been seeing in all those climate funds very recently how they developed a kind of organized fraud schemes. You know, they use the programs to accommodate interest here and there, per diems here and there, and the money achieves everywhere but their true recipients, right? So how can innovation or this push for innovation that you were trying with your fund can avoid it? You know, all those years that we've been putting a lot of money and allocating a lot of resources without with very timid impact, actually, right?
Yeah. So the first thing here is the Ecological Impact Fund, as you saw earlier, it pays one big amount of money every year, right? And that money is fixed. It's pre-announced, let's say $4 billion for 2027. Now, that money is divided among innovators. Now, as you say, innovators may well try to cheat. They may exaggerate their sales. They may say, okay, we sold 500,000 mopeds in Angola, and these are electric mopeds that have an ecological benefit, whatever. So they may try to exaggerate. But suppose that they do. If they do that, who is cheated? Not the Ecological Impact Fund, because the Ecological Impact Fund is paying $4 billion, no matter what. They are cheating the other innovators in the system, because the other innovators get less money and they get more money. And that means that we have deputies that are helping us stop the corruption. Namely, all the other innovators in the system have an incentive to stop any corrupt innovator. So, and if any other companies are also operating in Angola, they could say, look, this company is claiming that they are selling 500,000 mopeds in Angola, but we don't believe that at all. Here is some evidence, right? We are operating in Angola. We know a thing about Angola. And so we will tell you that this is not true and this should be checked up, right? And so innovators have a reason to police each other, to supervise each other. And of course, any innovator who is found to be cheating will face both financial penalties and also reputational penalties. This fund is meant to be for poorer populations. And so if you cheat, you are an asshole, you are a bad, and that will give you a bad reputation. And so I think, A, it would not be successful, and B, if you fail, you will really ruin your reputation among customers in the whole world. So I think that we can control that cheating problem and make sure that the companies are honestly reporting their sales figures. And of course, we will check up, right? We will check up on how these, not only on how many machines or technologies are purchased, but also on how they are used, because we want to measure the ecological impact. So
Yes.
we have to look at, is this machine actually working? Is it being used, right? Is it producing the benefit that it is supposed to produce, and so on? And we do that with randomized samples where we check, every 1 in 1,000 of these mopeds that they're actually being used, actually how they're being used, and so on. And then we extrapolate on that basis what the total impact is of the use of this particular innovation.
Amazing. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for all that clarification. I also want to take this opportunity to thank you immensely for all the support you are offering us at the Institute of Advanced Studies in all the projects that we've been running. Right, Carla? Same. I'm also very grateful to you, Carla, and Ruth, for everything that we've been doing related to the social control of deforestation in the Amazon, and this partnership with our Angolan brothers. Yeah, thanks a lot.
So thank you very much, Professor Polk. It is, as Professor Eduardo just said, our great honor to work with you and to have the opportunity to be with you in this project. Thank you so much. I also would like to thank our colleagues from Angola in our audience. Thank Professor Ruth. She was not with us in the beginning. I think she also had a problem. Thank you so much for being here. And I would like also to thank our team at the Institute of Advanced Studies, especially Thais, for all the support to this program. Today is our last conference in the program, and as I said, we are going to organize the continuation of this capacity building program together with Angola and also Mozambique, and has been really a learning experience. So thank you very much. I don't know, Professor Polk, if you would like to give a final remarks.
Yeah, just again to thank you for this opportunity and for the good conversation. And also, I will send you the information about the Nelson Mandela Essay Prize, and I hope that this will be the beginning of a fruitful collaboration and a long-lasting friendship.
So thank you very much, and all the best to all of you. We will keep in contact to give information about the next program. Thank you very much.
Ciao.
Professor Carla, Professor, it was a pleasure.